The Airbus A380 is one of the most decommissioned aircraft, even among carriers that adored it, and their enthusiasm for it is undeniable. For example, Emirates is the largest owner and user of the amazing A380s, yet they have been unable to fly them as frequently as they would want for some time. Yeah, it would be inconvenient to pay so much to load your aircraft lineup with such costly aircraft and then be unable to utilize it. That is, the reason must exceed the cost of obtaining such a machine. What problems do airlines like Emirates face with their A380 fleets, and why are they reintroducing them now? Airlines prioritize two bottom lines: reduced operating costs and larger profit margins. The choice of aircraft is the most controllable aspect that may make or break the achievement of these goals. The A380 was the favorite of airlines before customers discovered it, owing to its size as a huge wide-body airliner and by far the largest passenger airliner. Its massive size could only imply one thing: more passenger seats and more money to be made. Why did Airbus build such a large airliner? It was their definitive response to Boeing's long-haul market supremacy with the flagship jumbo aircraft, the Boeing 747, which had lasted decades from 1968 until the first A380 was constructed in 2003. Airbus has produced around 254 A380s, 3 of which were test aircraft at the time of its maiden launch. After approval by the European Aviation Safety Agency and the US Federal Aviation Administration, it entered the market formally in 2007 through Singapore Airlines. Subsequent decades would see a reasonably strong demand, with the largest number of A380s sold, 30 per year, between 2012 and 2014. Emirates was the greatest A380 client, allegedly purchasing 123 A380s, with the 123rd delivery being the final A380 supplied by Airbus. Boeing, on the other hand, has manufactured 1,574 units of the Boeing 747, distributed over 6 distinct models. Before the A380, the Boeing 747 dominated the market with its ability to transport 366 people in 3 travel classes. It had a double-deck design and an elevated cockpit with cargo space, a real treat for airlines wishing to do some heavy tugging over extended voyages. Airbus competed in the early years before the A380s with the heaviest variants of the A340s, which did not give adequate challenge to the established 747 in the 1990s. The A380 Super Jumbo plane is big and airy between the seats, making it ideal for a 7-hour international or transcontinental travel. Factors such as trip time and safety began to influence passenger preferences and airline brand selections. They decided to fly even if it cost an extra $1. The A380 has flown about 800,000 flights, with no known deaths or hull damage, making it a highly exceptional fleet. As a result, there was no skepticism about why people preferred to travel on the huge aircraft, given its luxury and safety. Emirates, the world's largest Airbus A380 operator with over 120 A380s in service over the years, had no problem with it either, touting the ability to increase earnings by accommodating more customers for long-haul travel. To address your question about why Emirates has so many A380s in its fleet, the first aspect is that it revolutionized the long-haul flying experience for passengers who liked the comfortable Airbus. The airline, on the other hand, favored the A380 primarily because it served to meet high demand in slot-constrained airports. In layman's terms, it addressed the issue of flight cancellation or postponement caused by overcrowded airports or low-capacity planes. Emirates flights may transport as many people as possible across many locations, with any number of A380s flying out of airports every day. It also gives them the freedom to tailor the aircraft's economy, business, and first-class sections to their preferences and profitability. Nevertheless, this brought with it a new challenge. A380 owners had to struggle with the fact that the A380 was deemed too big for some destination airports. Being the biggest airplane in the world had its advantages, but its 90-meter-long wings led to airport restrictions, limiting the number of locations they could service. Certain airports were unable to accommodate the aircraft due to its size, putting the bottom line at risk. Moreover, in an industry where airlines operate on razor-thin margins, adding an airport to handle their flights means greater profit and expansion plans. As a result, Airbus had to lower the wingspan from 90 meters to 80 meters, limiting the aircraft's efficiency. Yet it was modest in comparison to the size of most large airports. Some airports were able to adjust to the new giants, while others were unable to. Because of the restricted network coverage, they had to raise the trip cost to fewer locations that could accommodate the massive A380. They had to confirm that the trip would be approaching full capacity before arranging an A380 flight. Things would have been different if every trip flew at full capacity. The expected numbers would have worked well, but filling the enormous planes was a significantly difficult thing for carriers. There was a considerable loss of per-passenger efficiency in the long-haul market over time, a technical degree. The scope of long-distance travel had shifted. Long-haul flights were formerly quite profitable, but the emphasis has switched to short-haul travel. It was a concentration of flights using smaller planes to suit the low demand for medium-haul flights to remote locations. Lower volume flights accounted for a sizable chunk of market share. For best profitability, airlines can only travel to a destination at full capacity if there is a guarantee of returning with a similar capacity. It was futile to use the A380s to go from highly populated areas with high demand for air travel to cities with low demand and then return with less than half of the passenger capacity to satisfy the predicted profit per trip. As a result, airlines possessing A380s were unable to schedule their enormous wide-body aircraft as they desired. Emirates could only utilize the A380s on significant routes to the largest and most popular metropolitan destinations, accounting for less than a third of overall air travel demand. The pandemic was the final nail in the coffin, completely reducing demand for long-distance travel. Many national governments prohibited both international and domestic travel to heavily crowded cities where the illness was widespread. It also served to slow the transmission of the infection. Airlines felt the burden of the large investment made in wide-body aircraft due to poor demand, and Emirates had to ground nearly 100 A380s. They had even bought an extra batch of A380s from Airbus, but had to cancel since the profit margins had been wiped out due to the situation in the aviation business. Emirates Air was Airbus's largest client, and their cancellation was quickly followed by Qantas Airlines, which paid $445 million for each unit sold. Nevertheless, their separation from the A380 did not result in a total abandonment of Airbus, as Emirates bought 40 A330 and 30 A350 aircraft to catch up on narrow-body flights while grounding their larger aircraft. Meanwhile, Emirates competitors withdrew their 747s owing to the same problem. The pressure is now on Emirates to resume some of its prodigal A380 flights, maybe due to the slow recovery of air travel demand. After the lifting of air travel restrictions, a growing number of airport customers have been able to enjoy the utmost comfort of the super jumbo jets resting dormant in Emirates air hangars across the world. The powerful forces in the aviation sector are racing to ramp up their operations and fulfill the rising demand for air travel. And for Emirates, the A380s are the ideal solution. 3 years after the pandemic, Emirates Airlines service has recovered by around 80% and, in certain aspects, has returned to pre-pandemic levels, with network coverage restored to 95%. The management feels that reinstating the A380s will assist the airline in regaining the remaining 20% capacity that it formerly had. Emirates Air aims to completely restore the A380 fleet and reclaim their position as the king of long-haul aviation. Just 85 A380s are now in service. Several require maintenance and upgrading before flying again. The decision could only have been prompted by the impending resumption of air travel demand, and Emirates is putting up $2 billion to remodel the cabin interiors of their A380s and 777s as they aim for increased expansion by the end of the year. They have already taken steps, with the first A380 flight landing in Auckland, New Zealand in December 22 after a 2-year absence, returning Emirates premium services to clients travelling to and from the city. Passengers may now continue to enjoy the large and pleasant cabins that have become synonymous with the typical A380 flight experience throughout the world. With Emirates daring to move to invest in bigger A380s, imagine what other airlines are up to compete in the great rebirth of long-haul travel. Indeed, many of them dislike the A380 and will most certainly restore their fleet of 747s, an equally huge carrier, to meet the demand in areas where they are based. Boeing will be forced to manufacture additional aircraft that can compete with the A380s in the long-haul market, or risk losing a big piece of its current market to Airbus. Even though the Boeing 787s may not have the same capacity as the Airbus A380s, they remain an excellent option. But how many airlines would be ready to take on the Boeing 787 or 747 when the A380 is a far superior option? I know you want to hear more about this, so why not click this video here. Thanks for watching.